don't remember exactly when, but I remember always having a book and reading when I was a child. And I started reading mostly Enid Blyton. That's still a favorite author. And then moved on to other books. As I grew up, I read all kinds of different books. So when you talked about limiting the number of books that we discussed to 5, it was
it's
very
really
hard.
difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult.
I know. Enid Blyton is such a good author. I think her Far Away Tree series has come into the screen. It's going to be really, really good.
I think all children should read her books.
Yeah. Her books were really easy to read. So even as an adult, sometimes I go back to some of her characters because you could relate to them so much.
Yes. And then I remember reading Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, all the mystery books, and the Sweet Valley High books, and all those things. But also together with that, I read a lot of mystery, thriller type of books.
I really enjoy mystery books as well. Hi, welcome to Between the Lines. This is the show where we talk about books and we discuss all things book related and talk about the journey of how we became readers and how it has affected our lives. So today we have Miss Shaheen. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started. What would you say is your favorite book?
That is such a difficult question to answer, but I would start with my favorite author now.
Okay.
Because I think I've read almost all of his books. And I wrote this one. This is my favorite author, Dean Koontz. I don't think a lot of people have read
I've actually never heard
books.
of his books.
It's a mix of, I would say, science fiction, horror, and a bit of humor in it. And he writes like separate books as well as series. So the book I brought tonight is Odd Thomas, and there's a series of books based on this character, Odd Thomas. It's about
his name is Odd Thomas.
Yes, that's his actual name.
I thought Thomas was his name.
It has a lot of humor in it, but it's also a bit dark in the sense it's supposed to see ghosts, people who have died unjustly. So that's his quest most of the time.
It's very interesting.
Plot. Yeah. So this is one of my favorite books from this author. So
what do you think, what would you suggest is similar to this?
To this author?
Yes.
I don't think there is exactly a similar author, but Stephen King, but that would be
more
horror
thriller. Yeah.
So this is a bit different, and all his books are actually very good, and different types
of characters.
Yeah. And this is something like if you enjoy a little bit of horror, because it has some humor in it, I think you would enjoy reading about
I'm very
this
averse to reading horror because I think books scare me more than movies do.
It's not really scary type of horror as such, so I think you would like it.
Okay, I'll definitely give that a try. Generally, what genres do you read?
I read everything. This is one. I don't know which genre it would fall into. I also read thriller, mystery type of books. I also read romance. And what else? Yes, science fiction.
Science fiction is really big now. I love how people have embraced science fiction completely, and then there's so many movies being made about it right now. What do you think about books becoming movies, especially some of maybe your favorite books?
I think some of it should not be made into movies because the book is always, most of the time the book is much, much better. So I always like the books because it has a lot of imagination, and I think from most of the books you cannot really put everything in a movie. So I would prefer books. I will give you an example, the Fault in Our Stars, I think.
Okay.
That one, I really, really enjoyed the book, but I didn't like the movie. Because it had a lot of missing parts in it.
It did. Some of the very important things were not in the movie, and the movie added a lot of extra things.
And I think Harry Potter was not going to say anything about Harry Potter, but Harry Potter, of course, the books are much, much better than the movies. And all that content, the richness, I think it cannot be really put into a movie.
That is true. So do you read physical books or e-books?
I like the feel of physical books. Okay, I still prefer physical books, even though my husband has encouraged me to move away from all these physical books. So now I have a Kindle, and I do read a lot on my Kindle. And when you travel, you cannot really carry physical books.
You do want to, but
on
you
your
can't.
Kindle you have a lot that you can read.
Yes.
So now I do use my Kindle, but I think I still prefer physical books to the Kindle.
I do as well, and then whenever I'm wanting a physical book, I would either go to the library, which is another really great resource that we have to get books. Do you think children, why do you think children don't necessarily go to libraries that much now?
Because there are so many reasons. I think we have a lot of screen time now.
Reading.
So you have so much to watch on TV, you have so much to do on your computer.
On your iPads.
And I think it's taken children away from books. And but interestingly enough, because I buy books for my nephew and niece, they've started reading, and because they're given interesting books, they sometimes prefer to read instead of watch TV or something else or play games.
What are you introducing them to reading?
For my nephew, he's going to be 10 years old. I've just introduced the Harry Potter books, so he's read all of them now.
He's read all of them?
Yeah.
That is so cool.
I think not the last one, the first child, but the other ones he's read. And for my niece, I got I forget the author's name, The Cat in the Hat, the series, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah. So those books I got her because it rhymes. I think she finds it interesting. She also reads Divehi. There are, even though we don't have enough Divehi novels, there are a lot of children's books. So she likes those with pictures as well. She likes books with pictures.
All children do. At some point, I think generally children do grow up reading books, but maybe at some point they can't make the transition from being a kid reader to maybe a teenage reader.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to consciously introduce them to, from children's books to young adult to adult books.
Young adult is another genre that's just taken over completely. What do you think about young adult books?
There are a lot of interesting books. I cannot recall a specific one, but when I was growing up, I said Sweet Valley High and all these things.
And the Nancy
Drew series, Hardy Boys, all of those. It's got a lot of adventure. It's got a lot of fantasy, so it's interesting. But now I think you have young adult books that are
much more intense.
More intense than what we used to read.
Yeah.
But I think it's, for modern society, it's not a bad thing as such, but as Maldivian parents, maybe we have to be aware of what our children are reading.
That's another whole different conversation that we could be having. But yeah, as you were saying, the young adult books we used to read were very fluffy and kind of cute and nice, but now we've got like very serious issues being discussed in young adult books, which is really good because then they get to sort of know about what's going on right now.
How to deal with the issues that they face. So it's
they can relate much more because I don't think children nowadays could maybe relate that much to Sweet Valley High or to maybe they can to some extent.
I suppose it's a darker world now. I suppose you have to think about a lot of other things.
In a way, the kind of books that are published is a depiction of how the world is progressing.
staccato.
Feel the color.
Talking about Harry Potter, there have been so many new things happening in the Potter world. What do you think about all the new books that are coming out?
I haven't read all the new books, but I like how they have taken things from the Harry Potter books and then come up with cookbooks and a book about the different houses, about fantastic beasts. It's very interesting.
It is.
And I recently reread all the Harry Potter books, mainly because I wanted my nephew to read. So I read, he and I had a sort of competition. So
To see who can.
well, of course I can read faster, but I started a bit late, but I recently reread it, and it was so wonderful going back to the Harry Potter books again. You see so many new things.
That you didn't see the first time you were reading,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to spoil the cursed child for you, but it was an interesting twist to the Harry Potter books. I think you should also read that one.
Yes. I mean, I was just in awe at this cover. This is one of the new editions, and it's like Gryffindor themed.
But then so little about Gryffindor, right?
It is, but it's still really beautiful. I think it's nice for you to just collect like all these editions.
Yeah.
Do you have the same copies or like same books, multiple copies?
I used to keep books in the house because I like the feel of books. I like reading. But then if you keep all your books, you don't have space. And books are meant to be read. So now when I read books, I try to give them away. So today when I had to come and bring some books, I had to go back to the library. I donated some of my books to the library. So I took them again from the library to come and show you like this, not exactly this one, another Dean Koon's books that I donated to the library. I took it again to just bring to the program.
Yeah, talking about libraries are so important to get people, especially children, to start reading, right? Because I remember when I was younger, I would always go to the library and then you only allowed to take, I think, 2 books. And then I would finish reading it as soon as possible so that I can take more and more books. But I think nowadays children are a little averse from libraries.
Yes, I think in the Maldives we don't have such a child-friendly library as such. But in other countries we have libraries with an environment that is friendly for children, that's also friendly for adults.
as
And
well.
at MNU we don't really have that concept yet, but we are looking to create a space where the students can also interact and feel at home. And we've seen concepts of libraries with bean bags and sofas where you can sit around and discuss things. I think that would be a good thing to have in the Maldives also.
That is true, yeah. mostly people that just read, even at libraries, they don't really have an outlet to, let's say, discuss the book. They might go on social media and talk about it, but it's never really a conversation.
Discussion, yeah.
And about books, do you read Divahi books?
Yes, but not lately. I did bring 2 Divehi books because I watched some snippets of the program and I didn't see anything about Divehi books.
People generally tend to not read
Avoid.
Divahi books, which is a shame because there are such good Divahi books out there.
I think we don't have a lot of choice. We have either romance or horror. And
That's true.
maybe that's not something everybody wants to read.
Yeah, it would be really cool to have maybe Divahi science fiction.
Yeah. And I actually wanted to bring one book that I read when I was a child, Mamma. I think Sakura Ibrahim Naim wrote it. It's a novel and about that thick. And I looked in the library, but it was out for mending or something, so I couldn't bring it. And that was an easy read. That is something I think everybody can read and relate to. And talks about the importance of a mother, and I think there's a lot of lessons in there. I don't remember the details of the book anymore, but it's an interesting book. And this one,
Don't hear
the Elephant. This is the
classic
Romeo and Juliet
story.
of Maldives. And there's such a lot of metaphors in the Divehi language that you can relate to. A lot about culture, a lot about how you can describe things richly. So I think this is also something people should read. This is available in bookshops now also.
Yes.
So you don't really have to go to the library and hunt for old books. So it's there and available for people to read in addition to the recent books that people have come up.
What I like about the books of this time period is that it does include a lot of cultural elements and how like we used to live back then, which is really wonderful.
It's something children should learn now.
It is.
And about this one, Sham Dehas Tirihuk.
Is it?
This
Is
book
it a
was,
thriller? That sounds thrillerish.
it's futuristic. So this describes events in 2030, and this was written in published in 2005 actually. And some of the things that they say would happen in the future have already happened.
Okay.
So it's something that is interesting. It's different. It's different to romance or horror. So it's futuristic. It has things from all angles. What happens to society in 2030? So I think it's good for Maldivians to read and how we are behaving now and how far we have reached to 2030 according to this book. So that's an interesting book. There's other books by the same author
Mustafa
also.
Lutfi. I did read one other Divahi book by him
There's
called
Sariya.
Samfai Musa, which is I think
Romance.
romance horror,
Yeah.
which is also very interesting. I like how he writes. It's very beautiful.
So that's also a different writer. And horror, I think Bimma
Dimma
writes, but I haven't read a lot of his books, but that's also interesting.
One thing to note is that there's a lot of Divahi, like very large stories being written on newspapers and news websites that people do follow. I did try following one story, but I could not keep up with it. But there are a lot of Divahi authors. Maybe they're not really getting the chance to publish their book as a book.
I think we used to have books that were translated to Divehi, like Daniel Steele books, or I think mostly Daniel Steele books were
Yes.
translated, but now we don't have that anymore. I think, but we have authors who can come up with novels in Divehi language that everybody can relate to or read.
There were also a lot of Urdu books being translated, right? Because I remember my parents used to love those, like they were really thick books that usually had a girl's name as the name of the book.
And there would be a lot of drama.
Yes. It's like watching a Hindi drama, but as a form of a book, which is also interesting. But I think there's been an increase in Maldivian writers, though they're not really writing in Divahi, but it's still a chance for our stories to be told, maybe. What would you think about books being translated? Like, for instance, Donghele Ariful being translated
Into English.
into English or other common languages.
It would be interesting. I think we would get more readers,
It
and
would.
I think it would be, let's say, something positive for our tourism also, because a lot of people can learn about our culture, how we did things in the olden days, and how we had Romeos and Juliet, our own Romeos and Juliet. So I think that would be interesting if somebody translated. I don't know whether you can exactly translate all that is in there.
There's probably not enough.
Yeah, but it would be good.
The essence might not really be translated, but it would be nice to see. Plus, it would get much bigger audience, which I think the way books deserve but never get.
Kato.
Feel the color.
What other book would you like to talk about?
About 5, I think, a little bit more than 5. I want to talk about this one.
Oh, it's Narnia.
It's the Narnia series.
Yes.
I love the Narnia series where you go into another world, and it's a strange thing about the Narnia series, but I remember most is Turkish Delight.
Oh,
And
sweet.
it's something like when I didn't get to I didn't get to taste Turkish Delight until later in life, but it's something I really, really love now.
And then you always associate it with the
Turkish
book,
Delight
right?
with these books. So this was a favorite. And then I bought a different kind of book. I think if you're interested in literature.
I love classics. I think
Pride and Prejudice. I think Jane Austen,
yeah.
all her books are
All her books
very
are
nice, but
really
it's a different theme. Like it's English, very old-fashioned, but there's a lot of rich words in there. So this is something I loved, and actually I loved the movie also.
I have
Pride
There are
and
so many
Prejudice.
movies,
Yeah.
so many versions. I've actually
And
not watched any, but I love the book.
Yeah, this is when you grow as young adults, as young adult girls. I think they would find the concept of this old-fashioned romance very interesting.
Very traditional.
Yeah,
People are very averse to also classics. Like everybody's have classics at their house, and they're like, I'll read it one day. But I don't think people generally read and love classics. So
But it is maybe
maybe
a bit
the word
difficult
and, yeah,
to
it's
read.
difficult to read as
But
well.
there's a lot of things that you think about, and how you can relate to like similar characters in your life as compared to this at this time. So it's an interesting book to read.
And also the time period, it actually does give a very real depiction of the time period, which I really like about period books, where they do show, like they take you into that time period. The books that we read does shape us. So
Yes.
for new readers, or maybe even for regular readers, what kind of books would you suggest?
I would suggest that you read a whole lot of different things. Some more serious books and some lighter books. And I had a look at all the books around here. I want to point out some books like that. This one, The Memoirs of a Geisha. It was very interesting, about a lot of information about Japanese culture in there. Something that's like traveling to Japan. So that's something you can read. Sidney Sheldon books, very different. I think I've read
Very
almost
different, yeah.
all of the Sidney Sheldon books. A bit serious, and you learn a lot of things about society in general. And the Shopaholic books, Sophie Chancellor, I love her books. They're very light.
They're very light and perfect whenever like you have some free time.
Yeah. Chicken Soup, a bit more serious, but also a good read. And then the Dan Brown books. There's also
Angels and
a bit
Demons.
serious, but then you learn a lot from those books. And what else? Stephen King, of course.
It's just a collection of all different
And
types.
Jeffrey Archer and John Grisham, I think definitely should read. So that's a collection of things you can read that takes you to different
that's a very
places.
nice, well-rounded collection of books. This has been really, really fun. Thank you so much for coming. And here we have something from Kia's online books for you.
Thank you. This is so beautiful.
It's on Facebook, and you can definitely buy physical books, maybe for your nieces and nephews.
Or for myself.
Or for yourself. Yes.
Thank you so much.
It's been really nice. Thank you.